Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to me being back on the YouTubes, because of course I have been away for the last week or so. Can't really call it a holiday because there was a funeral involved, but it wasn't a bad break apart from that, and it was nice getting to see some of my family again. And I say some of my family because anyway, I won't go into that. That's definitely a longer meandering ramble than can be contained in this video, because this is going to be quite a short replay. So during that time when I was away, this came out, the Progetto M36, the Italian tier 8 premium medium tank, and as they've done with many other lines, they've put out a premium ahead of the actual main line coming out, or the main branch, or just the nation in this case. So this thing, in most regards, if you just look at the stats, is not particularly different or interesting tier 8 medium. In fact, it's pretty squashy. Not as squashy as the CDC, but it has a very similar armament. The gun handling overall is also not bad, decent view range, but this is very much a kind of support machine. You don't want to be trying to tank the damage in this thing because, like I said, it really doesn't have much armor to work with. However, there is one special feature, and that is it has a new kind of autoloader. Most autoloaders, you've got the magazine, you unload the magazine, and you have to go through the entire reload process, even if, say, half the shells are still in the magazine. Not so with the Progetto, and I keep having to not, in my head, call it the Prosecco, just because it's quite a similar word. But who knows, maybe that will stick as the nickname. So this thing, 3-round clip, which is, the reload counter is not showing up properly in replays, but it does have its own special little reload counter. And it has the option of, basically you can fire the entire clip in one go, as Kitsune Mimi has done, or you can just fire, say, 1 or 2 shells, and they will then load in the shells separately. But the tricky thing is, if I can call it tricky, it's not really tricky. The thing you have to think about is that the final shell, we'll call it the top of the clip, when it's fully loaded and you fire that top of the clip shell, that one reloads the quickest. That has a base reload time of 8 seconds. The second and third shell that you fire have longer reloads respectively. So if you are fully loading and then emptying the clip, the entire clip, every time, it is going to have a serious impact on your overall damage per minute. The optimal way to play it, in terms of having the highest DPM, is to only ever fire that shell at the top of the clip that has the fastest reload. But there are times, and there's been a couple of good examples in this game already, with Kitsune Mimi here behind the wheel, who I've definitely shown replays of before. I definitely have, yeah. Where it is preferable to get that burst damage instead. And partly that's because this game has just been a complete raffle stomp. It's not that interesting or closely fought of a game in and of itself. It really is just that this is the only one of these replays of this tank that I had available, and it is going to be a good result on the end score screen. Although part of that is the fact that Kitsune Mimi is firing full APCR, and I'm going to guess it's because they're either trying to get the ace or they are grinding for gun marks from the start, which is, you know, it's a new tack. It's something to do, I suppose, but it obviously is going to mean that they're not really going to earn nearly as much profit as they would do otherwise. There are a lot of targets, despite this being a tier 10 game, where the regular AP with its 212 penetration and its 240 damage would have been absolutely fine. He does fluff it a bit against this T32, and because he's firing the bottom of the clip, as it were, he's now got the longest reload to deal with as well. However, of course, he's not alone, and so the Stridsvagen picks up the kill before the T32 is able to hit him again, which would have quite possibly been his death. But, of course, it wouldn't have mattered. They have quite conclusively won. They are seconds away from capping, and Kitsune Mimi himself has done over 4,000 damage with another nearly, in fact, just over 1,200. So the Type 4 makes a last attempt at getting a kill, but it just misses. And so Kitsune gets to live. However, despite the pretty decent amount of damage, 4,100, over 4,100 done, and the 1,200 assistance, that was only a second class mastery. So this thing, you know, is fairly competitive at the moment, but it's a new tank. That's what happens when new tanks come out. It, you know, the very good players get in and have their very good games, and everybody else struggles to keep up a bit. But because it has that burst potential, and that you have to think about whether you're going to use that burst potential or if you're just going to fire single shells and treat it as a normal gun, it requires some thought, and that makes this an interesting tank. And it's actually going to be potentially an attractive option compared to, say, something like the Lorraine 40T with a very traditional autoloader, where a lot of people don't like the downtime that an autoloader has, even if there are occasions when that burst potential of a clip is really powerful. This tank combines both those things. And so it's the first premium in a long time that actually does something really interesting. And I think there are people that wouldn't complain if there were other premiums that came in the game like this. And of course it's going to be a mechanism that you see on the regular Italian tree as well, so depending on what the other characteristics of the tank are like, it might end up being quite a popular line, because it's a really interesting mechanic, far more so than the Swedish cheese wedges, which, you know, that was the last time I had a new mechanic introduced, and it was on a line of incredibly campy sit-at-the-back tank destroyers, which, you know, is not something I consider to be particularly fun to play or to play against. But, you know, that's a whole other video, and I'm already rambling on too long at the end of this one. So let's wrap it up. So hopefully you have enjoyed this replay, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.